I think of a class as a river. And if I am giving my students a midterm, and a final, I'm not giving them very many stepping stones to getting over the river. And they're having to make these giant leaps, and it's all on them. It's very individuated context that students are having to master this. So I like to think of what kind of stepping stones can I give my students to help them cross this river. And so when I think of the things that we do in the class as skills that they're learning, things that are going to help them get from those different stepping stones to the new stepping stones across the river, I think about what are those things that I can add into the classroom for students. So I do weekly homework assignments. And so we cover the material in the class, and then every week they have a weekly homework assignment. But the weekly homework assignment is for credit or no credit. So as long as they prove to me by doing the homework that they're actually attempting the question, they're going to be given credit for that. I don't want to have students be discouraged because they try the homework and they get it wrong, and then they feel that they failed and they're going to be less willing to put themselves out there for the next homework. So I do 4-credit homework, and this builds this confidence that I can try, but I'm going to get credit for trying, and that there's value in me trying, and it's not just value for the correct answer, it's value for the process. So I have those stepping stones that I add to the process, and then I do some self-reflection exercises. I like to start off the semester with a growth mindset exercise. A lot of students come to organic chemistry and they feel very discouraged. They feel like they've heard from everybody else that it's so difficult and it is one of the hardest classes they're ever going to take, and that is already clouding their thinking. So I start with a growth mindset activity where I ask students to think about their strengths and think about themselves as capable learners and approach the organic chemistry classroom with that mindset as opposed to a deficit-based approach. So that's kind of one of the examples of this self-reflection that I prompt in the students. I also incorporate exam wrappers. So after students take exams, they have to not only correct their exam, they have to write about what they did wrong on their exam and why it was wrong. And then I also have them think about what they might do different next time. So how can I change the outcome on a future exam? What am I going to do different when I study? How am I going to better prepare myself for the next exam? And so I'm continually giving students these prompts for self-reflection to help them make better choices in the future and empower them to make those choices for themselves. I definitely always do exam wrappers. I always start with a growth mindset. I also like to do asset mining for the students. So I do this in a couple different ways, but I want students to think about how they got to where they are and what obstacles that they've conquered during that process, and turn those and flip them and ask students how they think that that can be utilized as a skill, a strength, or something that they can tap into to perform well in the future. I always encourage my students to do homework in groups so they get immediate feedback with each other, but I also incorporate a lot of group work into the classroom. One of the changes I made this last academic year was that I took one of the midterms out of my course. So I used to do 3 midterms and a final, and I actually lowered it down to 2 midterms and 1 final. And what I do now is I do weekly group quizzes. So I ask students to spend 4 minutes reflecting on the problems that I've given to them. And usually it's 2 or 3 questions that are from the previous 2 lectures, so it's recent in their mind. And so they have to self-reflect, think about the answers, and formulate what their answer would be. Then I force them to stand up in the classroom, and I have them interact with each other and walk around the classroom. It's difficult at first to get students to actually move around the classroom. I force them to stand up and walk around the classroom and kind of encourage people. But once they learn how I want them to do it, they really do adopt this very readily and jump up and run around the classroom. But what I ask them to do is I tell them that they have to interact with each other, and they have to share what they're thinking, what why they answer the way they did. And if they know that their answer is correct, then they need to educate the people around them. So they need to instruct the person who has the answer that they think is wrong so that they can educate that person. This is a benefit to everybody, because not only is the person who doesn't have the right answer being taught the right answer by their peer, but the person who's elaborating is doing some learning and reinforcing that information in their mind when they explain how to answer the question to the other person and tell them why they think their answer is right. So the students are encouraged to talk to as many people as they possibly can in about 5 minutes, and they jump up and run around the classroom and talk to each other and discuss and educate each other about the question. So that is one of the biggest ways I incorporate group work into the classroom. I do problem-solving exercises every day in class, and I always encourage students to talk to each other. But one of the biggest ways I incorporate group work into the point structure of the class is by doing these weekly group quizzes, which seems to work really well, and the students really like them. I think it was just kind of a continual evolution for me of continually committing to trying new things in the classroom to see how I could continually be improving the experience that I was providing for my students, so that I was just honing my skills as I went along.